Breaking news. Putin has been assassinated. One might even say that he is done. What happens next? These are the joys of the creative writing prompts that I get thanks to viewers like you. So pick up the phone, because it is time for the Geopolitics HelpLINE to begin. Suppose Ukraine assassinated Putin via a drone strike. What will we expect the result to be? Would the next leader come in and use it as an opportunity to seek peace, or use it as an excuse to escalate? Would we expect to see the Russian people rally round the flag? I am sure that we would see something. But what exactly that something is, we would have a hard time anticipating ahead of time. Then again, that is sort of the point. Apologies if that was a confusing way to start out. Please give me the next 8 minutes to try to clarify things. As a starting point, we should discuss what, legally speaking, is supposed to happen in Russia following a president's irregular departure from office. According to the Constitution, the Prime Minister immediately assumes the office of the President. Pop quiz, everyone! Who is the Prime Minister of Russia right now? It is Mikhail Mishustin. Do not worry if you did not know his name or have never seen this face before in your life. His lack of prominence in the Russian system may very well be a feature of his appointment. Following the Prime Minister's temporary appointment as president, Russia must hold an election within 3 months. The winner of that becomes a full-fledged president of the Russian Federation. You may recall that there has been this type of irregular turnover once before. Apparently terrified about all of the problems that the Y2K bug was about to cause, Boris Yeltsin resigned on December 31st, 1999. Putin was prime minister at the time, became acting president, and won the subsequent election. Then, because Russia is a weird place, he became the prime minister once again and is now president once more. Keep in mind that we are talking about an autocratic system right now. Russia is not a liberal democracy. The rules written in the Constitution matter less than what goes on behind the scenes. I would wager that the Prime Minister would take over as president as described in the Constitution. But what we would not have thereafter is a competitive election. Instead, we will have a 21st century rerunning of the death of Stalin, where the Kremlin's political machine starts turning. Competing factions within Moscow jockey for position, and eventually one of them emerges as the frontrunner. Following that, the government's persuasion system will kick in. The Russian media will hail the anointed politician as the savior of the Federation, and an uncompetitive election will crown him president. Perhaps the viewer had hoped I would clarify who is likely to dominate that process, but I cannot. As I said at the top, such answers are unclear. And they are unclear by design because it benefits the current president of the Russian Federation. Once you designate a clear line of succession, the number 2 becomes an immediate threat to the current leader. Say what you will about hereditary monarchies, but at least they had a decent solution to this problem. For the number 2 to usurp the number 1, the number 2 would literally have to kill a blood relative. The cutthroat world of Kremlin politics offers no such relief by comparison. And thus, we are going on 27 years of Putin as the preeminent leader, with scant clue of who comes next. In the absence of better clarity on the proper nouns of the internal politics, at least allow me to provide a broad overview of the competing factions. On one side, you will have Russia's traditional oligarchy. Think of these as the normal business leaders inside the country who have been lining their pockets thanks to the Russian system for decades. Or at least were lining their pockets. Recall the phrase that I often use to describe the war. It is a process that transfers wealth from Russian oligarchs to the Russian working class for the benefit of a Putin vanity project. These oligarchs hate the war. It is not only costing them in the form of monetary transfers due to wasted government spending, it is also costing them dearly in the ordinary business world. They are the primary losers of Western economic sanctions. They used to make a ton of money by having access to Western markets. They no longer do, and until the war ends, They will continue losing billions of dollars every year. They will be the staunchest anti-war voices in this post-Putin process. They will not want to up and leave Ukraine, but they would be looking for a quick way to at least freeze the conflict. On the opposite side will be a pro-war faction, handicapped by the fact that they have lost their fiercest advocate via Ukrainian drone strike. This is more of a mishmash of Russian nationalists who see the war as extending Moscow's rightful grip over the near abroad, and a new class of oligarchs who are lining their pockets thanks to the government's massive new spending on weapons programs. The misleading story you will often hear from Western commentators who want to sell you overly optimistic projections is that the Politburo will use Putin's death as an opportunity to politically reset things and remove Russia from a perilous situation in Ukraine. And to be clear, it is fully possible that will happen. However, there are a bunch of individuals with a vested interest in continuing to fight, and if they can get a hold of Russia's security services, then either the oligarchs all get in line, or they start queuing outside a 10th-story window. To make matters more complicated, as long as Putin is alive, it is hard to gauge the true loyalties of these players, both from our perspective as outsiders, and for even those involved in the inside game. Adopting a position of dissent right now can be a ticket to your dismissal. To make matters even less clear, the entire conversation we have had so far was predicated on Putin's death. But thankfully, this question was more specific. The premise here is that Putin was assassinated by a Ukrainian drone, and thus, as indicated by the question, there will be a rally round the flag effect. What is tricky to gauge is how widespread it will be. A common Western misconception about Russia was that Vladimir Putin was an unpopular dictator entering the war. He was not. His popularity may have been tainted by Russian citizens conforming with the government line and voicing approval to avoid any political unpleasantness. It is further tainted by the lack of real political competition in the country and a free press that can report dissenting opinions. But the size of the conformity camp is overstated, and the political manipulation is irrelevant. If someone that Russians have been made to like has been assassinated, they will be angry all the same. The intervening variable in all of this is the war itself. No doubt it has cost Putin some of his popularity. His political brand for decades has been that the Russian system has many flaws, but he is a righteous leader at the top, trying to drain the swamp of corruption and poorly managed institutions on behalf of his people. The problem with continuing that narrative is that the war was his own making, and so he has undermined that argument. That said, the West misunderstands the extent of Putin's problem. Naive commentary on the subject treats the war as something universally despised by the Russian people. But remember that adage from before. The Russian working class has been an economic beneficiary of the war. Consequently, the rally round the flag effect would not be as strong tomorrow as it would have been in 2021. But it will still be there. It will still be notable, and it will give the war faction just a little more ammunition in the internal battle. As a closing point, whenever questions like this come up, there is also interest in knowing whether any of the ideas we discussed are applicable to other areas. In the absence of giving you a clear indication due to all of the uncertainty that we described today, let me at least comment how those involved are thinking about it. We know that Vladimir Putin travels with extreme security protections, specifically in the form of anti-aircraft systems. That tells us that he is specifically concerned about a Ukrainian assassination operation. And the extent of these protections is so extreme that it appears to be creating gaps in air defenses elsewhere, as those other locations are short on resources. In turn, we can be confident that the Kremlin assesses that Ukraine thinks it would be a good idea. But that still does not tell us whether Ukraine actually thinks that it is a good idea, or whether objectively speaking it would be a good idea. But that is just the mystery of geopolitics for you. Meanwhile, I can tell you that checking out the Geopolitics HelpLINE archive would be a good idea. Click here to see all of it. And if you enjoyed today's video, then please like, share, and subscribe and I will see you tomorrow. Take care.